असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति 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 असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति
Thank you, Ms. Mamta, for your exquisite recitation of Asutoma Satgamaya. This recitation has a deep philosophical meaning of guide us from ignorance to knowledge. This encourages us to let go of our own ignorance that blocks our vision, prevents us from seeing the ultimate truth, and residing in a state of all-knowing and all-understanding. Keeping the spirit in mind, let us begin.
Respected guest of honor, Ms. Chandni Joshi, Principal Ms. Milan, Director Ms. Shanta, respected parents and teachers, executive board members, organizing committee, and our dear delegates, Namaste and good morning. We welcome you to the opening ceremony of RBSMUN 2022. I am Rajut Singh.
And I am Athena Manandar. We are the Deputy Secretary Generals of Rathabungla School, Mall United Nations 2022, and we feel very honored to take you through this opening ceremony this morning. First of all, I would like to call grade 8 student Abhilasha Gorkhali to recite the Model United Nations Anthem, specially written for this occasion by poet Ramesh Kakurel in 2005, when RBSMUN initiated its first conference.
Namaskar. Mamanche majaste timi eka manche timi jai majai hun sabai matra manche sabaiko uhi jaat एउटै छ मान्छे न ठुलो न सानो सबै सम्म मान्छे छ कालो र गोरो फगत चर्म मात्र उही हात गोडा उही नेत्र गात्र नसामा उही रक्त रातो बगेको नुनिलो उही अश्रुधारा खसेको जगत एउटै हुन्छ साझा सबैको यहाँ छैन सीमा कसैले खिचेको तिमीको मको हौ यहाँ भाग गर्ने घृणा दुश्मनी बन्धुका माझ छर्ने हँसाऊ अरू साथमा आफू हाँस बचाऊ अरू साथमा आफू बाँच बनाऊ मिली विश्व नै एक डल्लो न आओस् कुनै भेद वल्लो र पल्लो न आओस् कुनै भेद वल्लो र पल्लो नमस्कार.
Thank you, Abhilasha, for the wonderful recitation. This poem truly represents the spirit of RBSMUN and the universal declaration of the human right that all humans are born free and equal, and thus have to be enabled by each other to live without facing any kind of discrimination. Now, we would like to invite our principal, the backbone of RBSMUN, Ms. Milan Dixit, to address the audience.
Namaste. Keynote speaker, Ms. Chandni Joshi, RBS Model United Nations Secretariat members, delegates, and dear guests. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the opening ceremony of RBS Model United Nations 2022. A very special welcome to our guest of honor, Ms. Chandni Joshi. Ms. Joshi is a gender rights and policy specialist. It is indeed an honor and an inspiration to welcome you here and to listen to your experience of working on gender issues within Nepal and around the world. Thank you, Ms. Joshi, for giving us your valuable time to be with us this morning. A very warm welcome to all the delegates, a special welcome to the guest schools from Nepal and abroad. Thank you for joining RBSMUN 2022. We hope you have a lively and memorable experience in the next 3 days. RBSMUN Executive Committee members, change, uncertainty, variability, transition, and novelty are a reality of life. And the COVID-19 pandemic has made this very apparent to all of us. To navigate this ever-shifting world, young people will need to be adaptable. And you have proved that you are. This year, the executive members have selected the theme, Shedding Light on the Overshadowed, where they will bring to you a blend of conventional UN bodies and specialized agencies discussing a wide range of issues from genocide in the Balkans in the 1920s to the current COVID-19 pandemic, each carefully selected to ensure an unrivaled committee experience. As an educator, I believe that simulations provide the most effective learning experiences. Putting yourselves vicariously into someone else's shoes leads to deep understanding of differing points of view, which ultimately helps young minds to understand the complex world we live in, and it is very complex. When they unravel the stances that nations and groups take and wide political spectrums, they learn what guides and motivates governments and institutions to make certain decisions. They begin to see the influences of certain interest groups and lobbies and businesses and understand how complex issues are. Simulations are engaging and exciting. They are fast-paced and constantly changing, and they require students to pay attention and be ready for new information and turns of events. And you know how to introduce interesting crises and keep them on their toes. Although students can find much of the material to learn from issues in a library or with an online search, they cannot Google engagement or passion or investment that a historical committee can bring. They cannot accurately take on a character or make viable decisions if they don't have a firm platform in which to stand and deep research to base their arguments on. Delegates, the underlying goals of a model UN curriculum is that it promotes peace, social justice, respect for human rights, and acceptance of responsibility. Through this experience, you learn the skills of negotiations, problem solving, critical thinking, and communication that will enable you to develop skills and values to resolve conflict and understand that discrimination and inequality are precursors to violence. Teamwork and collaboration are very important life skills that the Model UN teaches you. This is a challenge for political leadership today because they haven't learned to work as teams. They haven't learned to collaborate. In addition, the MUN helps you to develop essential skills such as coordinating with others, judgment and decision-making, and most importantly, cognitive flexibility to understand the other. The Secretariat team of RBSMUN consists of strong and dedicated student leaders who have worked independently with thorough attention to detail as seen in the Immaculate website, the carefully selected lineup of committees, and the agenda to be discussed within each committee. I have to congratulate the Secretary General Rivash, Deputy Secretary Generals Athena and Rajwat, and the capable and talented DIAS members of the student-run conference. The teachers have done nothing. We've just been there for them. They have done everything. And the different role takers who have been working behind the scenes to make this event happen. The logistic team who prepared the detailed organization and implementation of a complex operation, the press team, which is very dynamic, I believe, the IT team, which is the backbone of the virtual conference. They have worked on the beautifully presented website and are working on live streaming this session right now. Congratulations to the RBSMUN 2022 Secretariat team for taking on the challenge of organizing this unique conference independently. This is a completely student-run conference. Delegates, you are growing up in a world that brings challenging problems that have to be solved by citizens who are well prepared to think critically and act with deep social commitment. The world needs leaders who care to change the state it is in, and you are learning how to bring about this change. On behalf of the teachers, I wish you all the best for a successful event. Have a wonderful and stimulating conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Millan, for your encouragement. Your words will truly motivate all the participants in RMUN. Shedding light on the overshadowed, a theme that acknowledges the parts, concepts, and people of the world were swept under the rug simply because they were more important or more profitable agendas at hand, but not at this MUN. Here, every agenda is important and no one is left behind. With this theme in mind, it is up to you, delegates, as global citizens, to see what you can do differently to shed light on the overshadowed.
With committees from the 19th century to the present date and the American continents to Asia, RBSMUN offers 7 cognitive and complex committees, each promising an engaging and unrivaled experience.
First, we have the Great Council of Spain, taking us back to the 1890s to revisit one of the most controversial and most deluded battles, the Spanish-American War. This committee is chaired by Anugrah Rai and Pritish Raj, with Ananya Khetan, Vasu Gupta, Sanskriti Rijal, and Sawat Pradhan as executive board members. This joint crisis committee is formed amidst ever-growing tensions between the United States of America and Kingdom of Spain, hinting towards an impending all-out war. Next, the other Joint Crisis Committee, the Emergency Usonian Council of War, was formed with the aim of taking immediate action following the devastation nearing the Cuban territory. This committee revolves around the crucial time in which the United States of America is faced with an indispensable decision that would turn the nation into either a savior or a colonizer. Chairs Arraj Khotka and Rajat Singh, alongside Arav Bijukshe, Shreya Detal, Arnav Raj Bhandari, and Aryan Kedia as executive board members battle the inevitable war on the horizon.
The COVID-19 International Health Regulation Emergency Committee, chaired by Athena Manandar and Asito Wagle, alongside Abhinav Kumal, Samriti Bishta, Apeksha Vaidya, and Savarna Gautam, discusses issues stemming from the origin and containment of COVID-19 to the immediate response and future vaccine development. The COVID-19 International Health Regulation Emergency Committee delves its hands into the underlying issues of the overexploitation of consumers, the cracks inside the healthcare systems of several nations, and has brought the world to a standstill. In the Historic Security Council, chaired by Nirupam Khanal and Prasun Subedi, alongside Danish Puri, Shirsak Paudel, Ashima Chalise, and Aryama Sharma, we see 2 powerful and ambitious men, Iran's Ruhollah Khomeini and Iraq's Saddam Hussein, lead their respective nations to the front lines of what can only be described as the brink of one of the bloodiest conflicts that the Middle East could potentially witness. It is up to the delegates of this year's Historic Security Council to determine the outcome of this war, whether the hostages survive, war breaks out, or international diplomacy breaks down. It all depends on your actions.
प्रतिनिधि सभामा यसपालि माननीय सांसदहरूले नेपालमा निरन्तर रूपमा आइरहने प्राकृतिक प्रकोपले ल्याउने हानिलाई मध्यनजर राखी समाधान निकाल्नेछन्। नेपालको प्राकृतिक प्रकोपको समाधान राजनीतिक तरिकाले ल्याउनु परेकोले आयुष्मान नेपाल र समरचङ थापाको अध्यक्षता र कार्यकारी बोर्डका सदस्य मानस गोर्खाली र सुप्रभ राज जोशीको निर्देशनमा बनेको यस प्रतिनिधि सभाले प्राकृतिक प्रकोप र वातावरणीय हानिको समाधानका साथसाथै पूर्वाधार, यातायात, ऊर्जा आदिलाई कसरी प्राकृतिक प्रकोपबाट बचाउन सकिन्छ भनेर छलफल गरी समाधान र नीतिहरू ल्याउनेछ।
The Balkan Regional Council, chaired by Bardhan Raimadhi and Amardev Pant, alongside Sabyata Shrestha, Krishna Kumar Kondoi, Samragi Karki, and Urja Shrestha, takes place amidst World War I, where large-scale violence is occurring in the Ottoman Empire. As the days go by, many people continue losing their lives, while some are vulnerable to being subjected to sexual assault, harassment, robbery, and other such atrocities. Amidst a time of war, diplomacy is out of question. While being in such a scenario, representatives must determine the nature of these attacks and come up with solutions that are rational and can be effectively implemented with immediate effect. Set in 2016, the Council for Combating Terrorism, chaired by Dibyasha Sharma and Sneha Thapa, alongside Nimisha Gautam, Sakshat Parajuli, and Yangshin Lama, the committee takes on a raging war, administrative instabilities, and the blatantly inhumane acts of terrorism triggered by former Salafi jihadist militant organization Al Mira Biton. As members of council representing regional and international parties involved in this conflict, delegates, you must take decisions that will help in the restoration of peace for the better.
Now, introducing and acknowledging the people spearheading our tech and design, the heads of IT, Nimisha Sharma and Soujanya C. Arab. Alongside core IT members Vijeta Mahajan, Chandni Pandey, Samrita Lal Shrestha, as well as our core design, Sharno Shakya and Suyesh Koirala.
Then introducing the people behind the scene, our logistics team consisting of Avishkar Kadil Sharma and Patishta Chand as the head of logistics, alongside Bhivisha Prajapati and Shantidut Pandey as the core logistics member.
We also have our dear press team with Abhiraj Bahadur Malla as head of press, alongside editors Abhisha Bhatta, Basavijang Karki, and Shaira Manandar. We would also like to acknowledge our head of photography, Arpan Fuya, our head of art and design, Vipashna Dhaka, and Sonabi Patrai as our photographer.
Now, we would like to invite our Secretary General, Vivash Rizal, to address the audience.
Venerable Chief Guest, Ms. Joshi, esteemed delegates and distinguished guests, Namaskar and good morning. It is my honor today to welcome you all to the 16th edition of Nepal's oldest Model United Nations, Ratobangla MUN 2022. Even as the world slowly returns to normal from COVID, RBSMUN is holding its annual conference virtually for the second year in a row. An online conference brings many challenges, some of which we have had to have faced over the past 2 iterations, but it also opens up new doors. The number of schools you can host, the number of delegates you can have, the ability to do a midnight crisis, and so much more. What we look to realize through this year's RBSMUN and its large array of committees and topics spanning 3 centuries, from the Spanish-American War of 1898 to the COVID-19 pandemic just 3 years ago, is that the headlines of today are the history passages of tomorrow. What we value in discourse today is the very foundation of what tomorrow's history books will say. As such, our theme for this year is shedding light on the overshadowed, where we look to flip through the pages of not only today's papers, but also the papers of the past, to learn of stories of people which have been relegated to the lower echelons of discussion and scrutiny. The coming days will allow you to explore topics very rarely in the limelight. From the genocide of Armenians in the Balkan in the 1920s in the Balkan Regional Council, to the experiences of people living under the terror of Al Morabiton in North Africa in the Council for Combating Terrorism. This year's RBSMUN builds on its legacy further via the reintroduction of the Joint Crisis Committee covering the Spanish-American War of 1898. The Joint Cabinet allows delegates to act and react to enemy action while making decisions on an ever-mounting pile of crises internally. The war itself is much less covered as compared to the more famous world wars of the coming years, but nonetheless holds just as much importance given the resurfacing with ever stronger convictions, the ideas of manifest destiny at its end. A war that would shape the very nature of US foreign policy for the years to come. In Nepal, we find ourselves in a situation we haven't been in the past, with thousands of bureaucrats, politicians, and lawyers calling for the resignation of the Chief Justice over corruption allegations. The Chief Justice has been in office for 3 years now, but it has taken a blocking of the parliament dissolution from the Prime Minister, from his end, for there to be any controversy at all. While the facts of the matter remain murky, the rampant corruption and presence of bad actors in the national political scene is made clear by this fiasco. In the Nepal parliament, you will discuss the impacts of climate change, not in a far-off island in the Pacific or in the croplands of Bengal, but right here at home, in Nepal, in the rural villages at our mountains foothills and in the settlements around the Melamchi River, whose flooding displaced at least 100 families just this monsoon. In the Historical Security Council, you will get a chance to delve into the Iran-Iraq War of 1979 and comprehend its impacts on the situation in the Middle East today. Even for MUNers among you hardened by years of experience, these issues may be new, or at the very least, an unfamiliar one. The coming days will allow us to learn of media bias and the tendency of the media to systematically fail in providing fair and truly global coverage. But more than that, we hope to realize through this year's RBSMUN the impact of such media failure. Take the most covered news story of the past 3 years, the COVID-19 pandemic. While COVID has certainly been in the headlines, the conversation has mostly revolved around a superficial discussion of the number of deaths or which world leader appeared without a mask this time around. Even as millions around the world, especially in impoverished nations, continue to face the brunt of the impacts of the pandemic, economic and in terms of death, they seem to get no more than a news story or two from time to time. Many would have thought the rise of the internet, of mass media, of the ability of all people around the world to communicate with all others in it, so long as they had a phone with them, would have put an end to this. The current era of ever-growing interconnectivity, however, has enabled quite the opposite. The rise of fake media, of revisionist history, and simply of the ability to take a contested idea, even if it is wrong, and push it off as fact, has resulted in ever-growing polarization, hate, and communalism. We have seen what this can lead to in just the past year. Take the January riots in the US Capitol early in the year, or the continued hate against minority communities around the globe in relation to COVID, with Asian Americans in the US, North Indians in India, and so on. This year also saw some of the biggest protests in India's independent history, as farmers took to the street in protest of farm laws. The fiasco came into light, not for the content of the bills in contention, but for the attempt of the Indian media in sabotaging the protesters via mass media campaigns. As people in the United Kingdom and in many other developed countries began getting second doses and working on booster shots, impoverished nations again found themselves at a shortage of vaccines. A media campaign against vaccines led millions around the world to snub it entirely. This had wide-ranging consequences and ushered in what the United States CDC director put as the pandemic of the unvaccinated. While it is wrong for us, of course, to pin all of these issues on them simply being out of the media limelight, it is certainly true that had the media given these issues the attention they deserve, they would have not ended up the way they have. The coming days will allow you to examine pressing issues, which have not seen, like I said before, the attention they deserve. But it will also allow us to learn about and try to rectify the deep-lying systematic issue at hand, which has caused all of these problems to spring up in the first place. And I, for one, am truly excited for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rivash, for your wonderful speech. All of us are truly inspired by your elucidation of this MUN as well as the world at hand. Ms. Chandni Joshi is a gender, rights, and policy specialist with over 52 years of experience. In her initial years, she served as the Joint Secretary as well as the Chief of Development Programs for the Government of Nepal. During her tenure, she initiated the pioneering PCRW program that gave rural women in Nepal access to production credit. She also contributed immensely to gender-responsive budgets in the country. In 1990, she set up the UNIFEM South Asia Regional Office and has devoted 18 years into molding it into a knowledge-based organization.
In 2017, the Ministry of Women, Children, and Social Welfare, Government of Nepal appointed Ms. Joshi as the chair of the think tank of the ministry. Presently, she is also a member of the UN Women's Civil Society Advisory Group. She was honored with a lifetime achievement by the President of Nepal in 2009. Please welcome Ms. Chandni Joshi with warm applause.
Thank you. Respected Chair of this session, the Secretary General of RBS Model UN 2022, Deputy Secretary Generals, Chair of different committees, Head of Press, distinguished delegates, Madam Director, Madam Principal, faculty of Ratha Bangla School, and fellow scholars present here today. A very good morning and a big namaste. I really feel honored to be invited to be part of this grand endeavor. Let me start by wishing you all a very happy New Year 2022. Let's hope this year will show us new progressive ways to deal with the new normal. Every time I meet you in RBS Model UN, my heart swells with the pride as a Nepali, as a grandmother, and as a UN retiree to realize that with each passing year, Ratha Bangla School churns out the best of its students to learn and enact the UN General Assembly in the most realistic way possible. And the fact that this entire event is organized by A2 students exemplifies the value system inculcated in you to gain knowledge in the best way possible and learn from peers. I was very, very impressed with the speeches this morning, and especially the Secretary Generals, who could really sum up world event in 10 minutes. That was extraordinary. So one can see what the cream on the top you all are. And the fact that this entire event is organized just by you, as Madam Milan already told us, informed us, that is really praiseworthy. My hats off to you all. While being alert, attentive, expressive, persuading, and convincing, you also learn to accommodate yourself in this ecosystem and to survive, save, and protect others in the same way as we used to perform in the actual General Assembly in New York. The only difference is that an avalanche of information is in your fingertips, and you help your peers and juniors in this metamorphosis of enhance their skill through simulation exercises. However, back in our time, there was dearth of data, lack of technology, and simulation exercise was unheard of. No one even knew what simulation really was. Let me share a few anecdotes of my own life, the fears, the awkward situations I faced while trying to get acquainted with the functions of the UN. When I was preparing to contest in the Public Service Commission, that is Lok Seva Ayog, at the age of 19, in 1965, I remember frantically seeking information on the UN. And the only two places where the information was available was the British Consul and the USIS Library in New Road. Now imagine the drastic paucity of data then. Later in 1989, another incident, during my 26-year tenure in the Ministry of Panchayat and Local Development then, the government of Nepal nominated me to be one of the Nepali delegates to represent our country in the General Assembly. I was informed about this decision just a few days prior to my departure in New York, which even happens nowadays, the last minute informations. Being a thorough professional and in preparing for my learning sessions, I searched for previous records and proceedings of the General Assembly. But to my disappointment, I could find nothing. I remember leaving for New York only with the latest census data and demographics with me. For every resolution I drafted and motion I moved in those 3 months in New York, I had to seek technical help from the permanent mission of Nepal to the United Nations. Later, when I was with UNIFEM, the UN Secretariat in New York was my headquarters for almost 20 years. As I walked down its corridors, I would remember the painstaking days when I strived to gather information to present the different committees in my tenure. Now, when I look at you all today, I feel you all are not only fortunate but well equipped to use your expertise, your knowledge, and skill. Your school has provided a large canvas for you to create masterpieces. So do create those masterpieces. I admire your zeal, enthusiasm, and energy. And in a way, I feel a little envious of you all for receiving this golden opportunity at the comfort of your own country. I wish I was born in your times to avail such an enriching real life experiences. RBS Model UN is a noteworthy example of what an inclusive learning mechanisms looks like. The theme you have selected for RBS Model UN this year, shedding light on the overshadowed, seems very relevant and contextual indeed. And if you look at the SDGs, this is literally, in short, you have defined it, leaving no one behind. So the different councils and committees you have formed this year looks very interesting and exciting as you relive historic movements and try to change it for better, be it through the emergency Usonian Council of War, the Great Council of Spain, or Balkan Regional Council, or our own federal systems dealing with disaster, or live in the present and resolve burning issues of COVID-19 pandemic through the COVID-19 International Health Regulation Emergency Committee. I urge you all to pick up your gender lens and look at your committees through it. Gender equality is a cross-cutting issue and not just a standalone issue. And it is not a woman's issue, let me tell you. If you could incorporate this skill throughout your interventions in the MUN sessions and in real life, the outcomes and impacts might differ, and the results may be static. I say this from my 56 years of professional experience. Every motion, petition, and action counts to make this world a better place for the 50% of the world's population who have been suppressed and forgotten for generations. In the last 2 years, we have seen with our own eyes what man-made disaster looks like. COVID-19 pandemic has devastated the lives of all, but the financially poor and marginalized women, LGBTQI, the physically challenged, have been hit the hardest. Domestic violence was on the rise, and so was unpaid care work. The impact of COVID-19 has widened the gap of inequalities between the genders as well as the haves and the have-nots. The digital divide data was quite distressing, as it was a wake-up call to all. We showed that the poor had no access to equipment, technology, and information. The SDGs, which every nation had been working hard to achieve and trying to localize it and to realize it by 2030, has taken a backseat now. However, amidst all chaos, a realization dawned on us, showing that there has been adequate investment in digital connectivity and climate change, and has therefore opened a new era of opportunities for digital innovation and transformation. Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest was put to test again in a different context. Those who have been agile and resilient, be it individuals or businesses, survive better in the post-COVID era. Keeping up with the world issues while keeping oneself aloof has been the greatest test of our times. You know very well. Personally, I have been able to learn more, contribute more, and be part of an array of discussions which I would not have been able to participate in had the physical attendance been a prerequisite. I consider myself extremely lucky to learn from the younger generation, be it my grandsons Abbas, Abiraj, and Arab, or the vibrant development networks I am a part of in Nepal, South Asia, and beyond. It has indeed opened a new vision of generation equality, peer learning and sharing. Reverse mentoring is one on the rise, and definitely for better. RBS Model UN is an excellent example of this phenomena and should be highlighted in generation equality forums globally too. We are learning so much from you all. Your thought process and innovative strategies will definitely inspire not just the Model UN, but the UN processes itself. The UN has led many thematic burning issues since the 1990s. To name a few, the world was inspired by the Earth Summit in Rio in 1992, the World Conference on Population and Development in Cairo in 1994, and the World Summit for Social Development in Copenhagen in 1995, and the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing in 1995. The last year in the Generation Equality Forum in Paris, which drew participation of almost 50,000 delegates, the largest ever in the history of the UN. At this MUN, I want to acknowledge the powerhouse I see in front of me, the energetic, creative, attentive, unconventional, and enterprising young generation who will undoubtedly achieve so much more than the past generations. The skills you have acquired so far and the talents you are going to harness in the next 3 days will equip you with essential life skills you need in any career you choose for yourself. You can be a diplomat, you can be a successful business person, or any other, a politician, whatever you choose. You are going to be a success in that. The newly gained confidence and the art of team building will be extremely beneficial for your development, and the spirit of healthy competition among peers is also an important personality trait to reckon with. Distinguished delegates, I wish you all the best for a fruitful, action packed, vibrant, and documented MUN. May you absorb enough to contribute substantially in your sessions. Aim for the stars. Attempt to take a quantum leap towards progress. As the fate of our country and the world is in your hands. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Truly, thank you, Ms. Joshi, for your inspirational and influential words. We're sincerely grateful to have your expertise warm the hearts of our listeners as well as our participants. The Nepali sarangi is a Nepali folk instrument. It is a chordophone played by bowing. Traditionally in Nepal, the sarangi was only played for narrative tales and folk song. However, in present days, it has also garnered much interest in other music genres, from Nepali rock to film music. Now we present to you a beautiful performance of the sarangi by Nimisha Gautam.
Thank you, Nimisha, for your sublime performance. Before closing the opening ceremony, we have to acknowledge the efforts made by the logistics team. They have worked tirelessly making phone calls, making forms or documents. You have truly held your patience and worked with us even at the earliest morning to the latest possible night to make RBSMU in 2022 a smooth sailing one.
We would also like to acknowledge the relentless efforts of the tech and design team for pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into each detail of the website, publications, social media posts, and Discord servers. A round of applause for our art and design team for working on our splendid pictures and art found on our websites, presentations, and social media posts. Our dear principals and coordinators, Ms. Milan, Ms. Rajni, Ms. Rekha, thank you so much for your continued support and guidance. We are truly grateful for your expertise, helping us out every step of the way to create the successful conference. Thank you.
Then we share our acknowledgement to the Executive Board and respected participants. Thank you for helping us make RBSMU in 2022 possible. Last but not least, I would like to invite our dear Secretary General to declare the conference open.
Before I declare the conference open, I would like to take a moment to thank all of the committee members and the entire press, logistics, art, photography, and tech teams for their dedication and hard work that has brought us here. I am sure the next 3 days will be filled with enthralling debate and discussion. With that said, with the power vested in me as the Secretary General of Ratu Bangla School, Model United Nations 2022, I declare this conference open.